Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director, has suddenly quit right before the Epstein files are supposed to drop. We believe the Trump DOJ and FBI will be obstructing a lot of the documents that mention Donald Trump from being released. But Dan Bongino, after denying all of the reports that he would be quitting, has now admitted that he is quitting. And Donald Trump essentially mocking Bongino right now, saying, I think Bongino's going back to his show. Let's take a look at what Bongino just posted. Bongino writes, I will be leaving my position with the FBI in January. I want to thank President Trump, AG Bondi, and Director Patel for the opportunity to serve with purpose. Most importantly, I want to thank you, my fellow Americans, for the privilege to serve you. God bless America and all those who defend her. American flag. And just take a look right here at the time sequence of this. At 12:55 p.m., Bongino told MS Now, in great reporting from Carol Lenning, those at the Post and those at MS Now, Bongino tells MS Now when he was asked for comment on the story, saying he was leaving his position in January, Bongino said, quote, print whatever you'd like. No one believes you anyway. Then at 5:16 p.m., Bongino on X, I will be leaving my position in January. We're hearing from Donald Trump what he had to say about Bongino. And he says, I think Bongino really wants to focus on his show. And that's really what his priority is. Here, play this clip.
Oh, Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show. Yeah, I think.
As our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, writes, Bongino couldn't handle the pressure. Now he runs back to yelling conspiracies he knows aren't true into a microphone for cash to dumb down Neanderthals. And by the way, while all of this is happening as well, we learned that Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice and former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted child sex trafficker, she just filed a habeas corpus petition challenging her federal sex trafficking convictions. She's not represented by any attorney, but the reason, to be clear, why she's filing this is that now she wants to claim this is why I have to invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and why I was willing to speak with Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney number 2 at the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, but I'm not going to answer any questions for the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. I'm going to say I have a habeas corpus petition to be released pending, so I can incriminate myself. Do you see how this cover-up is shaping up right now? I want to remind you right here that Bongino seemed tormented from the outset. By the way, on day one of Bongino's job, and great reporting here by the folks at Bloomberg, Bongino got his hands on the Epstein files. And they were sent to him. The redaction team, welcome to the FBI, Bongino. The redaction team sent Bongino the files, and you see him receiving it that day in March. We also know with the corresponding billing entries that in 1 week alone, when Bongino got there was like $1 million paid in overtime to FBI agents. Over 1,000 FBI agents and DOJ lawyers and employees were assigned to this redaction team. We're working on aggregating the Epstein files back in March. And we know that Donald Trump's name is all over them. Heck, even Susie Wild, Donald Trump's chief of staff, I was going to say former chief of staff, because it seems like a lot more news is about to drop, don't it? She said Donald Trump's all over the files. That's what she told Vanity Fair. But she said, look, he and Epstein were just playboys. They were much younger and they were just gallivanting around town doing what playboys do. What? That's what you call it, Susie Wiles? But then you remember all of these appearances by Bongino on state regime media, which calls itself Fox. He couldn't handle it. He was like, I gave up everything for this. Me and my wife are struggling. This job is so hard. Here, play this clip.
I mean, I gave up everything for this. I mean, you know, my wife is struggling. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey. It's fine. I did this and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Cash is there all day. We share it. Our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet. I hear it. He's there he gets in at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night. You know, I'm in there at 7:30. in the morning. He uses the gym. I work out in my apartment, but I stare at these four walls all day in DC, by myself, divorced from my wife, not divorced, but separated, divorced. And it's hard. We love each other and it's hard to be apart.
But you're doing some great work. You're straightening out the FBI, you're moving buildings. There's a lot of change.
I got one more thing.
Then he continues to talk about how tough it is. He says, this is so tough for my family. Play this clip.
Before we get into specifics, what did you think the job was going to be like? What is it like?
The biggest lifestyle change for me has been family-wise. We already went through this with my time in the Secret Service. But, when the president called and asked if I would take the job, you can't tell your audience for years, go out and do stuff, talk is cheap. And then when the opportunity comes to do stuff, I didn't mean me, I meant you. It's kind of you're a fraud. You don't sound like a fraud. You are one. So, it was a lot. It's been tough on the family. People ask me all the time, do you like it? I say, no, I don't. But the president asked me to do this to like it. Nobody likes going into an organization like that and having to change things and make big, bold changes. But, I was at one of our facilities yesterday down in Winchester, and a woman who worked there, very nice, said, I used to watch your show. I miss you. I said, I miss me too. Part of you, part of you dies a little bit when you see all this stuff from behind the scenes.
Now, what you should know about Dan Bongino is that before he got this job as the deputy FBI director, he was a podcaster, and his main podcast focus was Epstein. And he would spread all of the Epstein, hey, the FBI's covering it up, the DOJ's covering it up. He would say, the Epstein was never suicide, and Epstein was, he was the one saying all of these things and pushing all of the Epstein stuff, and that the FBI needs to release it immediately. Then he was involved in the cover-up. So watch as Maria Bartiromo from State Regime Media, which calls itself Fox, ask a very basic question to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Here, play this clip.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Okay. And then we remember that the FBI director, deputy director, Dan Bongino, he had to take a stress day. He took a day off from work after a White House clash with Attorney General Pam Bondi over their handling of the Epstein files. 4 sources familiar told Axios. And this was months ago. And if you remember our reporting here on the MeidasTouch Network, by the way, this is why subscribe to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel now. Okay, we're on our way to 6 million subscribers. But how long have we been reporting that this guy was going to go? One of the first things we reported on this morning, too, was that he was out. Remember, you can go to the MeidasTouch Substack as well. But I brought on Lev Parnas, and we said this morning that his desk is clear and he's already out. Remember we reported that this morning? And we've been saying that he's been gone for months and months and months. The guy couldn't handle it. And here's what he told Hannity. He goes, in the past, I was paid for my opinions. And so one day I'll be back in the space where I can get paid for my opinions again. Here, play this clip.
I don't know if you remember this. This is before you became the deputy FBI director. You put a post on X right after this happened. And you said there's a massive cover up because the person that planted those pipe bombs, they don't want you to know who it is because it's either a connected anti-Trump insider or an inside job. You said that, long before you even thought of as deputy FBI director.
Yeah, that's why I said to you, this investigation's just begun. We are pretty comfortable. We have our guy. I think again, legal process starts to surface and information, facts start to come out. The public's going to be very comfortable with the investigation that was conducted under Director Patel and his leadership. He's been great on this. But I don't want to, listen, I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear. And one day I'll be back in that space. But that's not what I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director. And we base investigations on facts. And, it was interesting. I was looking out in the crowd today at the presser, and I saw a couple of media figures who you and I both know who promoted the other scandal, the collusion hoax. And I thought to myself, the difference between us and them is, we evolve. As information and new inputs come out, we can produce different outputs because that's what we believe in. We believe in facts and investigations guided by facts. There were people out there in that crowd, I'm sure still believe in this collusion fairy tale hoax. So we'll see. We're going to be guided by the facts as this thing goes forward. And I can't stop the, leave the truck here without thanking the president. The president.
And folks, we know we're just, less than 48 hours away from the release of the Epstein files. We know all the efforts by the Trump regime to cover this up. We're going to stay vigilant here on the MeidasTouch Network because we know all of the obstruction that's about to take place. And as we said, they're going to say at the DOJ, there's ongoing criminal investigations right now in the Southern District of New York into the real bad guys. It ain't Donald who's all over it. We're going to find the real bad guys, so we can't release the documents. Or you remember what MAGA Mike Johnson said? He goes, we can't create new victims, referring to the rich, powerful, billionaire men who are all over this list. And Donald Trump on the emails that these are the new victims. So we need to be protecting them. And we've been hearing what Kash Patel and Bondi are saying. We will turn over all that we are legally required to turn over. And just the reason why I mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell earlier in this video as well, because I just want you to think about this, which is she was willing to speak to Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, turned deputy attorney general at the DOJ, right? She spoke to him in Tallahassee. What happened after Tallahassee and she spoke to him? Well, she lied through her teeth because then we got all of those emails that Bloomberg unearthed and the Democrats in the House Oversight Committee, shout out Congressmember Garcia, that they unearthed. And we saw she was intimately involved in mentioning Trump over and over again. What does Trump know? Trump is in the house. Trump was at the house when the girls were there. I mean, you remember the emails? She assembled the birthday book that she claimed she didn't know existed, right? So she speaks to him in Tallahassee. She then gets moved from a maximum security facility to a minimum security facility at Camp Bryan, Texas. The whole Trump regime's like, we had nothing to do with it. It just so happened that the next day she gets moved to a minimum security facility where she's banned because she's a convicted child sex trafficker. So she's not allowed to be there. Okay. And then they moved her there. And then now she's like, I have to plead the fifth. I can't take a deposition. I can't speak. I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because I filed a habeas corpus petition. Now, just contrast that right now to Special Counsel Jack Smith, who walked into the halls of Congress today, took a deposition. He had his deposition taken today. He wanted to do it publicly. And the MAGA Republicans were too scared. So just think about it. Who's hiding things and who wants to tell the truth here over and over again? We'll keep you posted every step of the way, but big news, Bongino's out, suddenly quitting right before the release of the files. Hit subscribe, help us get to 6 million subscribers, and thank you so much for watching.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.